SpongeBob came out with a new episode recently called SpongeBob's Bad Habit, in which SpongeBob suddenly starts biting his nails a lot, with it escalating further and further as SpongeBob tries to seek the root of the issue. Though this episode seems at first glance like another wacky, dumb episode of the show, it actually has some really fascinating moments that sort of analyze and expand upon certain traits of characters like SpongeBob within an episode that's actually brimming with a lot of gut-busting laughs. I wanted to take a close look at this episode, discuss the moments I found the most powerful, as well as try and figure out what makes the rest of this episode work just as well. Let's get started. Something that stands out immediately is how good the comedy is in this beginning scene. It's less about what's being said than it is how things are being said, and the great sense of comedic timing. I'll give some examples. Squidward has a loud outburst after a long sequence of tension. Customers notice for a beat, then ignore him. Squidward's simple frown juxtaposed with SpongeBob's silly movements and sudden cut to his bright expression. The creative visuals working at a steady, almost calming sort of beat, never becoming overwhelming and only being used to express something in a clear fashion. Every line, every action, every movement in this episode is given the right amount of time to breathe so we as an audience could take it in and find it funny. This beginning scene is also an important one. Squidward complaining about his awful job has been a constant in this show's run, and this time they actually pull something really great from it, which I'll explain later. All I'll say for now is, see how invested SpongeBob is in how Squidward's feeling. Look at how willing he is to hear him out. Seems like SpongeBob holds his opinion to a high regard, doesn't he? Another mainstay in the show, of course, SpongeBob acting like Squidward's weirdo stalker because, in a way, Squidward's an idol to him. He trusts what he thinks and wants to be as cool and talented as he feels his friend is. All I'm saying for now is keep that in mind. We now get into the meat of the episode, SpongeBob's nail-biting habit. That whole thing kind of starts out weak because the first gag they make out of it is a gross-out joke, with SpongeBob getting fingernails all over everyone's food. I'm usually not one to mind gross-out humor, and this also didn't really faze me, but at the same time, it didn't really make me laugh. Not everything is perfect, of course. I think things really pick up once SpongeBob realizes this is a problem and goes out of his way to stop it. The creative mileage of every method used to control SpongeBob's habit is really freaking funny, and the punchlines and setups are so varied. Since SpongeBob is this malleable invertebrate with the ability to stretch and reproduce stuff like his limbs, it makes the nail-biting habit harder to control than expected, and leads to a lot of different ways for SpongeBob to end up continuing to bite his nails against his will. It's like SpongeBob's body is controlling him as opposed to him controlling his body. I really enjoy a lot of this episode because it brings back a factor I haven't seen been done that often lately. Not even just in SpongeBob, but in animation in general. Casual relatability. There are always characters in animation we can relate to on a deep, emotional, personal level, whose character arcs are ones that perfectly reflect the complex detriments of the human mind. I love stuff like that and encourage more of it to be explored, but at the same time, I feel like there also should be at least some amount of cartoons that explore the simpler irritations of reality. SpongeBob as a show has been a master of that for a while, covering topics like procrastination, insomnia, and self-doubt in pretty strong episodes that take simple qualms from real life and turn them into fever dreams. I'd say this episode fits that criteria quite well, and is honestly one of my favorites of them. Moving on from that, we're given a couple tame moments of fan service. Things that aren't distracting references that either add some silly gag into the episode or work as a clever plot point, like Gloveworld's relation to hands, therefore a relation to fingernails. A lot of the episode is not only about SpongeBob's problem, but it's about getting a good number of characters together to try and help SpongeBob. Be it main or more secondary characters, they all exist to serve some purpose here where it isn't out of character for them to show up in that moment. With that, we get good appearances from Fred, Mrs. Puff, and Hans. And Patrick and Sandy also have some really funny moments, like Patrick saying Gloveworld makes him forget his troubles and his name, and Sandy being hilariously disturbed by the lengths SpongeBob will go to bite his nails. All of that culminates into what is most definitely one of the highlight moments of Season 12, the Hypnotherapy Scene. It's within this scene that SpongeBob's mental processing is analyzed as we get a glimpse into his subconscious and all the things that currently trouble it. What's ailing SpongeBob seems to be related to Squidward's depressing monologue about the Krusty Krab from earlier in the episode. While SpongeBob recites Squidward's speech word for word, SpongeBob slowly starts to take the form of Squidward in a visual manifestation of his mental state that, while simple, is quite effective for what it's trying to convey. It's a brilliantly executed climax that connects to the beginning scene and actually studies our main character on a level deeper than ever before, in honestly one of the best twists the show's given us. It could be interpreted that he's having a sort of crisis, that the reason he internalizes Squidward's feelings as his own is because he admires Squidward and his opinions to such a high level. But in trying to follow in his footsteps, he's only making his life worse. It's a subtle moral of, like what was said in I'm Your Biggest Fanatic, hero worship is unhealthy, and you shouldn't change yourself to try and fit the mold of this unattainable respect from an idol. It's like a smarter way of saying you should just be yourself, and that's really a good way to describe this episode. Smart. Like, impressively smart by the standards of goofy, wacky recent seasons of SpongeBob. Not only that, but it actually has a strong grasp on comedy and timing and character, something a fan in this day and age could only dream of. Is this a sign of a brighter future for SpongeBob? I'm not entirely sure just yet, but knowing the people behind the show can make something as well crafted as this gives me high hopes. That's all for this video, so I just want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. See ya, bye.